Changes can happen at a time when no one expects them. Sometimes it begins with a setback, or at least with what might look like a setback. It was June 2020, and Cathy Hackl was an enterprise strategist at Magic Leap, her dream job at the time. She thought to herself, that's it, I'll stay here and enjoy my job till the end. But then something happened that changed everything for Cathy. Magic Leap eliminated half of its jobs. Around 1,000 employees were affected by the cuts, and Cathy was one of them, and she had to accept that. For her, it felt like getting a divorce from a dream job that she had loved. But that wasn't the end for Cathy. If anything, it was just the beginning of something bigger. After that, Cathy started a new position at Amazon. With her futuristic mindset, while working there, an idea came to her. Who are the customers of the future? How can you reach them? She collected her insights and published them in an article in Forbes online magazine titled, "Is Direct to Avatar the Next Direct to Consumer?" The article boomed. Cathy received a message on LinkedIn from a high-end fashion house, which led the way for Cathy to win her first client. From then on, Cathy founded her own company, step by step, and became the very change she wanted to see in the gaming industry. Game Changer, an audio series about innovative changemakers. Today's Game Changer is Cathy Hackl. Cathy is a tech and gaming executive and the CEO of Spatial Dynamics, a spatial computing and AI solutions company, including gaming. Hackl has worked at Amazon Web Services, Magic Leap, the HTC Vive, and has advised companies like Nike, Ralph Lauren, Walmart, Louis Vuitton, and Clinique on their emerging tech and gaming journeys. She's also built virtual experiences in Roblox, Walmart Land, and Fortnite, and has produced virtual concepts like Electric Fest, and is an Apple Vision Pro developer. She's one of Ad Age's leading women of 2023, was featured on the cover of Forbes Latam's 100 Most Powerful Women of 2023, and is on the Vogue Business 100 Innovators list. Hello and welcome to the show, Cathy.
Hello, Charlie. So excited to be here.
I'm so excited to have you on. I've got to say, that was quite a formidable introduction, running through all your accolades and achievements. It's
very humbling when I hear all of that. Very humbling.
Yeah, I mean, just first off, what a journey to be where you are, and, you know, before we even think about where you're going next. First of all, where are you joining from today?
So I'm in right outside Washington, D.C., living here, which is not a tech capital necessarily in the States, even though I'm a tech person. But yeah, I have a lovely, wonderful life and family here.
Yeah, I mean, if anything, you typically think of tech on the West Coast, Silicon Valley, Seattle, and, you know, everyone over there. So it must be interesting living in a different part of America to perhaps where people typically think to be based.
Yeah, I think it's part of the fact that, you know, I'm such an outlier, right? The fact that, you know, that I actually don't live somewhere like Silicon Valley. Most people that I meet out there will be like, oh, you're based in San Francisco, you're in the Bay Area. And I'm like, actually, no. So I think it's part of, I mean, it aligns with my ethos of change, of, you know, doing things in a totally different way.
I love that. I mean, let's just drill down into that straight away. You clearly must see yourself as a bit of a game changer in your industry. And I've been watching quite a few interviews with you to try and get a bit of background. And I mean, first talk us through the journey that you've been on, what that looks like, some of the milestones you've reached along that way.
I definitely see myself as a game changer. My career makes no sense, right? My journey, my path was more obstacles and changes than a straight line. So I think the only constant has been change and a constant growth. So, you know, I feel that there are certain moments in time throughout my career, because I started off as a journalist, mind you. I wasn't even in technology. Technology was not something that I was thinking about going into. I wanted to be a broadcast journalist, and I achieved that pretty quickly, got nominated for an Emmy. I was at the top of my game. But I quickly realized that wasn't enough for me. I needed something else. And I went on this kind of journey to find new purpose, a journey to find these new challenges and these new opportunities. And I had no idea what was going to be ahead of me. But I think everything's interconnected. And I'll give you an example of one of those moments. So when I was in journalism, I was working at CNN. And part of my job there was to look at all the raw footage that was coming in from the war in Iraq. So imagine the types of horrible things I had to sit through. And this is before, before Facebook, before YouTube was kind of a thing. So when you have that type of role, when it's your job, you have to kind of, the only way I can describe it is you turn your humanity switch a little bit. You don't turn it off, but you turn the dial a little bit just to get by. And it wasn't until about 10 years ago that I got invited to put a virtual reality headset on, early days in VR in the virtual reality consumer market. And I was transported into a virtual 6x9 solitary confinement cell in an experience from The Guardian. Within a couple of minutes, I was claustrophobic. I said, this is a place I absolutely never, ever want to be. But it also triggered something in me. There was this moment of empathy and compassion towards people that have to experience that. And I took the headset off and I said, this is the future of storytelling on some level. And this is what I want to do for the rest of my life. I didn't have any technical training. I didn't understand what the vision that was being laid in front of me would be, but I knew that was the path forward. And I took the gamble. I pivoted into augmented reality, virtual reality, and my journey started.
Wow. And so that one experience that was so visceral, just grabbed you. And that's the thing that really pulled you into the gaming world then.
Yeah. Yeah. It changed my life. It changed my trajectory.
Wow, that's incredible. And like you say, seeing in terms of your story anyway, you said, these themes of challenge and change and that being a constant. How did that continue then once you got into the gaming world? What was the next step?
Yeah, I think most women that work in technology, and especially in gaming, will tell you it's a hard place to be a woman, right? It's a hard place. It's hard to be, many industries are, but I think technology has been one of those. I think for a very long time, I second guessed myself, or I thought I needed to fit a certain persona or a certain, box, let's call it that, of what I should be. And I remember, a lot of people second guessing me and being like, oh, she doesn't have the credibility or she doesn't have the chops to do this. But I didn't let that, define me. My parents raised me in a way that they raised my brother and myself equally. They never said, you can't do this because you're a girl. They never said that. They said, go and do it, achieve it, do what you want to do equally. So for me, when someone tells me, no, you can't do this, or I don't think you can do this, I literally say, hold my beer. I'm going to go. I'm going to prove you wrong. I'm going to accomplish this. And I think that drive and that the fact that I don't put those limitations on myself, and sometimes I do, I think we all do, right? But I kind of let myself go for it and go at, really fast speeds to accomplish what I want to accomplish. So I think that that's one of those parts. And the other thing is, over the years, as I became a lot more known in the industry, as I accomplished more and more wonderful things, I also saw two things. I said, first of all, I can become someone that people admire, like especially women or, Latin people or people of different races or different, backgrounds, someone that they can look at as a different face of technology, right? A different leader. And that stuck with me. And then the other thing that really stuck with me as well is that I was trying to, in some ways, like I said, fit into a box, right? As a woman, I remember thinking, I need to only look serious, or I need to only wear leather jackets, or it was really interesting. If you look at all my headshots from my early days, they're robotic. Like it's literally like there's no smile. It's kind of like a robot staring at you, because I thought that's who I needed to be. And as I progressed in my career and I realized like the only one putting you in that box is you, Cathy. And, soon after that, I realized like, I believe in myself. I can be a woman, I can be feminine, and I can be in tech and gaming and do all of it. I don't have to look like the other male, leaders in the space. I can embrace being who I am. So yeah, I think those are some of the things that I've definitely taken with me as I've, moved along my path.
Yeah, I think to become the person that you are, you have to, all of us have to go on a journey and evolve and reinvent ourselves at times. And that's so, I'm sure that's something that's going to resonate with a lot of people hearing you say those things, that ultimately it's about learning to be authentic as your true self, and people will gravitate and follow you for who you really are. I'm sure you're a role model to so many women, not just in the tech industry, but all around the world, really. I'm really interested to know, who are your role models? Who are the people that have inspired you in your career and in your personal life?
I think on a personal level, both my parents, because I feel incredibly blessed, like I said, because they brought me up in such a way that I didn't have those limitations, right? So from a personal level, I would say them. And then on a professional level, there's a lot of people I admire. There's two women that for me are kind of my North Stars, or the women that I look at and I'm like, I don't want to be them. I want to be me. But I want to look at how they've done what they've done, right? So there's a woman called Kara Swisher. She's a tech journalist, very well known in the tech industry. I love how she approaches things. She is always authentically herself. She does what she does. She doesn't care what other people think, and she doesn't want to fit in a box. So I love watching her. I love listening to her. And then there's another woman called Amy Webb. She's a futurist, very well-known futurist. I just admire her, the way she's taken strategic foresight, which is the discipline, let's say, that futurists do, to new heights, professionalized it, brought it into more corporations, helped more people, more companies, more governments take up that long-term strategic planning. So those, I think, are two women, two North Stars, right? And I do think we should all look at like who our North Stars are, because they help us think about where we're heading. Right? I don't want to go in the same place they're going. Like I said, I want to be me and I want to be Cathy, but I need to have those North Stars to kind of at least have a direction towards where I'm sailing.
Yeah, I think that's a fantastic way, because we all have to follow our own path, don't we? We all have our own journeys, and clearly you've navigated so many industries just to be where you are today. When you look at these women who are inspiring you, who are changing the game, I'm really interested to know, what's your definition of a game changer?
I think my definition of a game changer is someone that knows that changing the game is within them, that they understand that what they focus on is what they become, what they focus on is what happens, that they themselves can't push the limits, right? Because once again, I feel like sometimes all of us are the ones that limit ourselves. I mean, there's many limitations. There's economic limitations, geographic limitations, a lot of those things. But I think that once you get into that mindset and that headspace of, I can become what I want to become and I can change the game. I myself, I'm a game changer, right? I think you get to that next level and you're like, okay, if that is my responsibility as a professional in this world, as a woman in this world, as a mom in the world, how do I do that, right? And that's when you start to think about, creatively, how do I make this happen? And then along the way, every time you take one of those steps or you shatter a new ceiling, for me, it's thinking about, what am I leaving behind? What are people going to see? What are my children going to say? What are people going to see? There's a phrase that I love, and it's live your life like a lighthouse. And I believe wholeheartedly in that, in how I'm trying to live my life like a lighthouse. And every time I break a ceiling, every time I get a new achievement, I celebrate it. But I'm thankful for all the people that have supported me, but also for all the challenges, because I need to be in a constant state of growth, that constant state of growth mindset, to be a game changer, to be a rule breaker.
Yeah, I think that's really profound. And I think it's so true. When everything feels too comfortable, you're not growing. You need to be outside, or at least on the limit of where your comfort zone begins, to be in that space where you'll start to have these new experiences and you'll start to grow as a person. And yeah, I think you really embodied that in what you just said. I'm intrigued to know, what were the kind of, the moments in your life, perhaps in your career, whether that was things that happened quite early on when you were still a journalist, those real game-changing moments that suddenly, propelled you on to the next thing?
There's many. One, it was really early on in my career, and I got asked to go cover the drowning of a young child during the summer. And, when you have the responsibility to go cover someone's death, especially a child, you can't really approach the family and be like, how do you feel? Like, we need to honor the human experience. And I think that, to me, I went with a reporter. I was a junior reporter. I went with a reporter that had more experience. And I got to watch him I remember him kneeling down because the mother of the child was crying, and he kneeled down in front of her and he just connected with her. instead of it just being, I need an exchange of information and I need you to tell me something, he came down, he kneeled in front of her, he talked to her, and he shared in that moment of the human experience and the empathy. And that to me was one of those moments where I said, anything I do moving forward.
Take your time.
Anything I do moving forward, I need to bring that human experience and that empathy into everything I do. And whatever missions, whatever obstacles are ahead of me, that needs to be my focus.
Thank you for sharing that. That's a really, I can only imagine that must have been a really intense thing to have experienced, and to be able to share that with everyone. It's really means a lot. Yeah, I think that human connection is something that in any experience, it's that level of connection, that really resonates so much with people. And if you can access that, and like the way you described it, that reporter just instinctively doing what felt like the right thing.
I think we sometimes forget it, and we're such focused on the goal and achieving a certain amount of money or a certain amount of recognition.
Yeah. Well, I think that's a really powerful story that you just shared, and to just, to be very vulnerable in that way and share that side of something that had such a formative experience on you. So thank you, Cathy.
You're welcome.
I want to ask you about a few things. First off, this moniker that you mentioned to me, the godmother of the metaverse.
Yes.
It's something that I know you don't want to dwell on it for too long, but can you just explain a little bit? What is the metaverse, and how are you the godmother of the metaverse?
So the metaverse, is pretty much something that is being created. It is the successor state to today's mobile internet. So it is about bringing virtual experiences and content into the physical world, but also more in the virtual space as well. I think it's a word that people have heard out there, right? And there's a lot of confusion around it, a lot of baggage, especially when you have like a company like Facebook go from Facebook to Meta and talk about the metaverse, or when, there's a lot of people say this is a metaverse or this isn't a metaverse. I believe the metaverse is being created. It's not here yet. I don't know if we're going to use the term metaverse, right? Like I said, it has a lot of baggage, but just for people to wrap their heads around, it's the successor state to today's mobile internet. And that's kind of where we're going to head next in the evolution of the web and kind of how we connect with information. So it's heading there. I got the moniker by chance. It's not, because it's people are like self-proclaimed. I didn't proclaim myself that. It happened on Twitter when it used to be Twitter. My friend Andrew Schwartz, who works for Nike's metaverse team, and Nike had been an early client of mine in my metaverse work, it was tweeting, had a tweet, an exchange on Twitter with Alexis Ohanian, who, many people know. Obviously, he's a billionaire, founder of Reddit, and I call him Serena's husband. He's more than that, but yeah. He was tweeting and he said, hey, who are the women that I should be following in metaverse and Web3? And Andrew tweeted a couple of names, and then he did one last tweet. And he said, oh, and don't forget Cathy Hackl, she's the godmother of the metaverse. So that people took a screenshot. It took on a life of its own. But it was very humbling, and it was like a huge responsibility, right, to be called that. So it's been interesting, like the reason that it does become a game changer for me, because it opens a door for people to recognize some of the work that I had done in the past, some of the, the thought leadership I had written, the work I was doing with the companies and the brands. So it opened a lot of doors. That being said, when move forward a couple years and the metaverse becomes like the word that no one wants to say, or a word that has a lot of baggage, or people are like, okay, forget about the metaverse, we're off to AI. There was a moment there where I doubted myself, where in some ways I had tied my identity so much to being called that, to putting myself in one box, right? That personally, it was really hard. Personally, it was really hard to get out of that box.
That underlines the whole problem of labeling people. And like you say, then you suddenly become known for one thing, and you're like, well, actually, I've moved on and I'm doing all this other stuff, and people are harking back to something that essentially started as a tweet. And yeah. And there's this idea of the metaverse. Am I right in sort of saying it's a lot of it is about connecting virtual experiences that people can have with actually things happening in the physical real world and the fabric of what connects those up and makes those kind of experiential things into the metaverse.
Yeah, it's the way I explain to people, and I'm going to go a little bit further out. So when you look at computing, right, you had desktop computing, we had our computers on our desks. Then we had mobile computing, we had computers on the go with us. And then what comes next, right? Mobile computing. Right now we're all living, through these rectangles. Like one of the things I hate is when someone goes to a sporting event or someone goes to a concert, they're literally like, living Beyonce and Taylor Swift through this. And it's like there's like this break with the human connection with the physical world, right? So I think what is going to happen with the creation of the metaverse and with spatial computing, which is the next stage in computing, is that you're going to have some of these experiences, some of these virtual experiences, expand into the physical world. So breaking computing from just the rectangles more into the physical world to all around us. I know that sounds weird and that sounds kind of maybe far-fetched, but that's kind of where things are heading. So it's kind of getting out of those rectangles more into being able to kind of see this content in front of us. And I'm very hopeful. I think people think it's pretty dystopic, but to me, I'm hopeful that we're going to be able to kind of like bring a little bit of our presence back into the physical world. Yes, we're probably going to be wearing some type of wearable, potentially, some glasses or something. But at least I feel like we might be able to look at each other in the eye again. There'll be data and annotations and information here, but I'm going to be able to have that conversation because I'm not going to have to be looking down or living through the phone. I'm going to be kind of doing it. I'm seeing through, eye to eye, but yeah, I'll have information. So yeah, that's kind of a way that I explain to people. That's kind of where we're heading. Both computing is expanding, the web is evolving, and the hardware that we use is going to change. Are we always going to use a cell phone? We're going to still use a cell phone for many more years, but it's slowly going to change and it's going to take different forms.
That sounds like a very hopeful, inspiring vision of the future. It's lovely to hear you talk about it in that way, because I'm sure a lot of people will connect with what you're saying. I, for one, I'm always trying to reduce my screen usage and stop scrolling on social media and things. And it's nice to envision a future where we have the benefits of this interactive world, but we're not so tethered to it in such a kind of limiting way, perhaps.
100%. And I think, I've been in that industry for a long time and I know a lot of it, but it was a moment this May that really brought some perspective to me. Once again, the human experience. I was on safari for my birthday with my two best friends and I was trying to brought my phone on all the range drives, right? And I was like very preoccupied with getting the best shot or getting the best video because I want to share it on Instagram, right? One of my best friends turns around and she's like, Cathy, just live in the moment. Put the phone away. Like, we're enjoying this amazing experience of seeing these animals in the wild. Who knows if the animals are going to be around forever, right? So enjoy it. So the next couple of days, I left my phone. But what I did, because I still wanted to capture the memories and keep that and share it with my kids, was I brought these Ray-Ban Meta glasses, the AI glasses that have the cameras and record. And it felt really nice because I literally just press a button and it would record. I didn't have to, I was living the experience. It was just glasses. It was my sunglasses and it was recording it, but I didn't have to break the reality of the phone. So yeah, for me, that was one of those moments where I said, the sense of presence that I was able to retain using a different form of hardware was so much different than the hardware that we're tethered to in some ways. I remain hopeful. And I think as a mother of 3 kids, I have to remain optimistic about the world. I have to remain optimistic. I know it's not going to be, utopic. It's not popcorn and unicorns, but I need to remain optimistic about what's going to happen in the future and how we build that future.
And this is all about, Generation Alpha. You were telling me Gen X, Gen Z. Generation Alpha is like the generation really that's going to be at the forefront of all of these kind of changes, right?
Yeah, I mean, they're the generation that is not going to know a world without AI. I mean, they grew up with Alexa. Sorry if I wake her. If I wake her for anyone, sorry. They've grown up with a world with virtual assistants. AI has been part of their lives in many ways, and more so now. Augmented reality is something that they do every day if they're doing social. Gaming is their social network. And for frame of reference, Gen Alpha is anyone born 2010 and still being born. So mostly the children of millennials, 14 or so, and still being born. So this younger generation, and by 2030, they're going to be 10% of the workforce, right? We're not that far away from, from 2030. So you're going to have some Gen Alpha employees coming to you.
Get ready.
Get ready, because they're very different. I think the biggest difference, Charlie, is that I think for these kids especially, they don't make a difference between virtual and physical, right? Like for them, it's a spectrum. I see a lot of like older millennials and older generations be like, the real world and the virtual world. Everything's real. It's the virtual world and the physical world. They will get home. My kids will get home from their sports practice, which I still want them to do things in the physical world, but they get on the computer and they play video games with their friends. And if they fight with their friends in Minecraft or Fortnite, and they're going to see them at school the next day, they're going to be upset. Just because it happened in the game doesn't mean it wasn't real. Like, it's real to them. These are real experiences. They're forming real bonds. Real connection is being created in these virtual spaces. And yeah, like, I think that's a bit of a mindset shift for a lot of people. And I mean, you experience it, right? Because you train using simulation and gaming.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a big part of how I, every time I go out to drive on a track in the real world, I do it in a simulation first. So it's something that I can really, I can fully appreciate. I want to jump into a part of the show. This is a format we call How Dare You? This is something you do with every single guest who comes on. And it's just a quick fire, kind of fun, 3 questions. What was the last new thing that you tried?
Oh, that's a good one. It's a personal one. Online dating. I recently got divorced after being with my ex-husband 17 years. And I jumped into that very scared. Takes a lot of courage, right? But it's been an interesting experience and journey so far. I would say that's the latest thing I've tried that definitely I didn't think I was ever going to have to try. So some good and some bad, but I would say mostly good.
Yeah, I mean, I'm already thinking about how, off the back of our conversation we were having, the physical world, the virtual world, and there's probably all kind of places you can go with that. What's a new thing you'd like to try, but you don't dare?
Oh my gosh, this is weird. So I've always dreamt of doing like a Tough Mudder race, like those really extreme Spartan races.
Yeah.
That's not me. Like, that is so not me. Like, I don't rough it. But for some reason, I've always wanted to do that. I've always wanted to accomplish that. And I've seen my friend Randy Zuckerberg achieve her dreams of running 100K. And like, she's just a monster. Like, she put her mind to it. And I watch her and I'm like, why not me? Like, why not me? I don't have to be number one. I just want to get myself to that point of doing it at least once. Right. So yeah, like, that's something I really, really want to try to push myself to do that.
Oh, you should definitely do it. I mean, as someone who I got into running after I finished my diploma, having hated running, long distance running was the thing I detested the most at school. And yet now it's the thing I love doing the most. I've done about 100K.
Yeah,
but,
it's extreme.
But I've got friends who've done Tough Mudders and things.
Yeah, I just want to do it. And I want to do it with a partner that pushes me to do it, to like get to the finish line.
A big part of it is that camaraderie, isn't it? It's motivating and pushing each other and doing it together. And yeah, I think that's a big part of the sense of achievement you get from it. I was going to say my final question, what's stopping you from doing it? Probably a very busy lifestyle, I can imagine, but...
I think it's the busy lifestyle and then the limitations of who I think I am, right? Once again, we tend to put ourselves in boxes. We tend to limit ourselves. I'm like, no, I can't do this. No, why can't I? Why can't it be me? Why can't I change the game for myself and accomplish that? So yeah, I think that I'm the only one holding myself back.
Yeah, a lot of people are going to really understand where you're coming from with that. Big part of what I talk about myself is, growing up with that feeling of limitation. And it's so true when you tell yourself you can't do something, we shoot ourselves down before we even pick up the tools, don't we? And once you change that mindset, that outlook and see the possibility, everything changes from there on in, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does.
Talking about change, I mean, this has obviously been a constant theme of your life, but, your field of work, must involve seeing change daily, the move forwards with technology and AI. And, how do you keep up to date with tech as a futurist?
It's extremely hard. I mean, I'm a voracious consumer of content. I'm a voracious reader. I'm a lifelong learner. I try to get my hands dirty and go in the trenches and learn. With this acceleration, tech acceleration, and the change that is happening, it's a little bit harder, I would say, to stay up to date. But for me, it's just trying to understand what is happening. And the biggest takeaway that I've had over the last couple, I would say 6 months or so, seeing everything that's happened with generative AI and generative AI just taking over the conversation and over the, top of mind for every CEO out there, right? Top of mind for every organization, every sports team, whatever it is, like everyone's thinking about that. For me, it's don't just think about AI as AI, right? Think about the convergence of technology that is starting to happen and how this is going to change the way you do your business, the way you do your sports, the way you work. Like, it's about this convergence. I think if we have that more of that mentality of trying to understand, it's not about just one technology or just about one part of AI, like generative AI is just a subset of AI. So I think understanding, having a broader perspective and understanding that there's a convergence moment, a convergence point that's happening that is going to lead to a lot of change. That in itself, I think, leads to people to understand that when we have these convergence points, like we did at the beginning of mobile, these are the moments of, yes, a lot of challenges, but huge opportunities. At the beginning of mobile, that's when Facebook was created, when Airbnb was created, when Uber was created. Imagine the things we can create at this convergence point that we're at right now, not just generative AI, but all this tech convergence and tech acceleration coming together is enabling, the future leaders of tomorrow, the entrepreneurs that are going to be the next Mark Zuckerbergs and the next Sheryl Sandbergs. So yeah, I think taking that step and understanding it is a point of convergence and a point of change in history and technology and business. And if you have an idea, as hard it is as it is to build right now, try and go build it.
Yeah, that's pretty inspiring. I mean, you must have such an interesting way of looking at things with all the information that you must absorb and process and all these new things that are happening. And you like say with AI, you must have a quite unique way of looking at the future and what's around the corner, what we're going to see. What do you think perhaps could be the next big things that we see in tech, the things that will really change the game and change the landscape of life as we know it even?
Yeah. So because I am a futurist and because I am in tech, I feel like I'm living like 5 years into the future. Maybe not 5, 3 nowadays because things have accelerated really fast. But I'm one of those people that gets to try out a lot of these new devices, a lot of this new technology. I'm like my own guinea pig in that sense, right? So I kind of look at it that way. I mean, everything's a prediction, quote unquote, right? The future hasn't been created, but you can plan for multiple scenarios and potential futures. But if you understand the technology, that is coming, if you understand the potential of the technology, then you can start to think about what comes next. So for me, one of the things I see coming is, that new type of hardware. We're going to see in the next 6 to 18 months, a Cambrian explosion of new hardware. I feel like there's this race to replace the mobile phone, right? It's not, we're not going to replace the mobile phone very quickly. It's going to take a long time for us to have the infrastructure to be able to do that. But you're going to see a Cambrian explosion of new hardware types. And some of them are going to fail very, very badly. And some are going to succeed. And I think that that's one of those ones where I'm like, I see this moment of convergence with technology. It's new hardware. It's also moving AI into the physical space, spatial intelligence. How do you make AI understand the world and actually be useful to you in the physical world? So that world of spatial intelligence is about to boom. Like that computer vision side of what's happening in that space is about to boom. So that's another thing. Yeah. And then the expansion of virtual content into the physical world in a way where we can engage with it in a more human interface. This is the way I see it. I think the biggest change, Charlie, that we're going to see is that for the last 70 years or whatever, we have been adapting to technology. Humans have adapted to technology. What comes now is technology starting to adapt to us and try to adapt to humans so we can go back to having a human experience aided by technology, going back to doing our work aided by technology, augmenting our worker, but not necessarily taking everything away.
That sounds like a very appealing use of technology, getting it to work around us as opposed to, as you say, sort of, us kind of fitting around it. What's the thing that if you could say, this is the thing I really want to see more than anything, what would that be?
Oh my gosh. I want to see more people like me in leadership positions. I want to see more women, more minorities, more folks that are, in different populations succeeding, being taken seriously, not being doubted. I always say I'm a different face of technology. Like when you think of technology, you're not thinking of me, But that's why it's important to have faces, people like me out there championing technology and showing that technology is for everyone, right? And everyone is welcome to come and build and create things. And I think AI is hyper accelerating that opportunity of being like, no, you can come and code. You can come and do this. It's not limited to only a few, right? Democratizes certain things. That's what I want to see more of. I want to see that. And I want to see more empathy, more kindness in the world, more time to just sit down and listen to people that might have different opinions. You don't have to agree with everyone, but understand that we are all human. And at the end of the day, we all have this one adventure that we're on, this one life, and you have to live it to the max.
Wise words. It's so wise. We have to be prepared to sit down and listen and try and understand people who have different views to us, even if we don't agree. It's about trying to find that common ground. And when we explore our differences, we often see a whole side of not only other people, but ourselves as well.
Ourselves, it challenges us. Like it really does challenge us to think differently about something.
Yeah, that's really compelling. I think, there are so many rules and borders and things in the world that we use to limit ourselves. I'm really interested to know, how do you define these limits that hold us back? You talked about this feeling of putting yourself in a box, and I'm really keen to know, I guess, any advice for anyone listening who's trying to break through a barrier in their own career. What would you say to try and inspire them?
I would say surround yourself with people that will push it to the next level, right? I feel like those people are the ones that have catapulted me. Surround yourself with those people that challenge you. Surround yourself with people that will help you get to that next level. Look at people as mentors or allies, like who's out there that can help you. For me, literally, it starts with things as simple as reaching out to someone. And I might have not spoken to them in a long time. I'll be like, hey, what's the chance that you and I could collaborate? What's the chance that you and I could do this? What's the chance that I could come into your studio and try this technology? Put that question out there in the world. And I learned this from a favorite podcaster. He uses this phrase a lot. And I use it now because it opens up that door of leaving that chance open for you to do these things. So those sorts of things. And that has actually led me to do something that I wasn't doing before. But now every time I step outside the house, or every time I go somewhere, every time I travel, I'm thinking, who am I engaging with? And whoever I meet, like if it's someone that's, cleaning the table, or if there's a server, or there's a cashier, or like whoever, it could even be an executive. I'll be like, hi, how are you? How's your day going? I want to connect. I want to know that I care, and I want to hear how your day's going, because I think we've lost a lot of that.
I think that's amazing advice. Thank you. Yeah, I think that power of connection is something that we need more of in the world. We need more of in our lives. And I think even just down to so many people these days, I had this experience recently of, finding myself working from home a lot and spending large amounts of time without seeing people. And even just, you go out the house for half an hour to get a coffee or something, walk into town, and just that feeling of connecting with someone can be such a highlight of your day when you've been sitting there hammering away on a laptop for 8 hours. And it's so important to have that feeling of connection, of community, and like you say, more kindness and more empathy in the world is something we definitely need more of.
Yeah, and helping people feel seen. Like I feel like when I ask that question, their eyes light up. They look over like, oh, someone is actually asking me about my day. So yeah, like helping people be seen and feel seen. I think that is a great step towards creating that community and that sense of empathy and that human connection that we've lost. We've lost it due to technology in some ways, right? Because we're all looking down here. I'm not engaging with the person over here, but I think we can change that. It really starts with how we embrace that.
We're hearing everything you've had to say, and I think even your vision of this future where technology is the thing that actually blends seamlessly with our lives and stops being this barrier, this obstacle that gets in the way of our communication and our connection with the person in front of us. I think that's been such a positive thing that I've really enjoyed hearing, and I'm sure a lot of people at home will really appreciate too.
I'm glad I could share that.
Well, it's always nice to hear a positive, constructive view of how technology and all these new developments are actually going to make our lives better, as opposed to getting in the way of what really connects us and, makes us feel human and have those human experiences and interactions. So thank you so much for coming on the show and just, sharing just such a positive and enlightened vision of a future where we're fully enmeshed in technology in a way that it doesn't become an obstacle between our human connections. And I for one, am feeling very, very inspired by everything that you said. And also thank you for being just so unguarded and being a beacon of inspiration, I'm sure, for a lot of people to be a woman in tech in your elevated position and be so open and vulnerable is really incredible to hear. You've been an incredible guest, and thank you again.
Thank you, Charlie. It was my pleasure. And thank you as well for the work you do, because it inspires a lot of people.
Thank you so much. And if people would like to follow you, keep up to date with what's happening in tech, where's the good place that they can keep up to date with what's happening in Cathy Hackl's world?
Well, definitely Cathy Hackl, CathyHackl, across all my social media. LinkedIn is really the place where I share the most thought leadership and everything. I've got a couple books out, but just watch out, world, because I have great, amazing plans coming.
I love the sound of that. Well, I can't wait to hear what you're up to next. I'm going to be following very keenly to see what you're doing and where you're going in the future, Cathy. Well, I hope you've enjoyed this episode, folks. I'm feeling very motivated myself to go out and set myself some new goals. And I just want to remind you that if you're new to Game Changer, then please remember to go check out some of the other episodes in this series. We've had some incredible guests with fascinating stories. So if you enjoyed my conversation with Cathy Hackl, then please make sure to go back and give them all a listen.